Welcome, everybody, to the podcast experience. I'm Johnny.
I'm Adrian.
And here we got a special guest in the house today. We got a doctor, Hattiesburg grown, Dr. DeBroski, Raphael Herbert. You can call him DRH. Welcome to the podcast experience.
Thank you. It's really my pleasure to be here, gentlemen.
Yes,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Cool. So we're just gonna jump right into it. You, what is your exact title for the field that you're in?
So I'm an immunologist,
Okay.
which means that I have extensive training on understanding how the body's internal defense system, how we resist diseases. And that's actually my specialty is infectious diseases. There's lots of other branches of immunology, but my particular area is how we respond against pathogens, things that try to infect us and make us sick.
Okay. Wow. That ties really well into the pandemic, right? Into COVID-19. So you've been busy a lot during COVID-19.
There is an extremely busy time right now.
Right,
Yes.
right. Okay.
So tell us about your background. I'm pretty sure that, back when you started, wasn't a lot of Afro-Americans in that field. So what was it like for you getting into that field, and what were some of your ups, downs, struggles, challenges?
Right. Yeah, so it's a lot, I will say, I will say, and just kind of speaking to perhaps the young people who would listen to this podcast, I noticed that coming up through grade school and high school and all of that, science was something that always really was interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
It just really was curious. And I found that in any profession, to find out what your gift is or where you should move towards is something that's internal that really speaks to you. And science was something that was internal and spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the curiosity part really started from being a young child growing up here in South Mississippi, when my great-grandmother, growing up in Palmer's Crossing, would tell me, don't go outside without my shoes on. And I really couldn't understand why I couldn't go outside with my shoes on. But it was when I finally had a science major, when I went to Xavier University, when I'm wearing my coat of arms today, where I found out about parasites.
Okay.
And so the south of the U.S. is notorious, is historically been known to have parasitic organisms that live in the soil and that will infect you in your skin and live in your intestine.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And when I found out about that in college, I was like, wow, this is really amazing. This is what my great-grandmother was telling me about
all those years ago.
Right.
Right.
The second thing I will say, then when I got to graduate school, because then I decided, hey, you know what? I could make a career out of this. I started to, halfway through college, I started to realize that there are scientists
Mm-hmm.
out there, and scientists who are discovering basic findings about how the body works. And I felt like I wanted to be one of those.
Right.
We have many, you may, know George Washington Carver, which he wasn't an immunologist, but he was definitely a very prominent African-American scientist. And so I knew to some degree that I could be a scientist. It was rare, it was going to be hard, but I could be. But the other thing that I learned from my great-grandmother that really helped me get my PhD, which is what I went on to achieve, was when I was young and killing, going hunting and killing squirrels and rabbits. Right. My grandmother would tell me when I would bring a squirrel or rabbit, she would say, "All right, boy, you got to take out the muss." And I was like, what? You know how the old folks used to talk, like, but just do it. Just do what I say. That a muss is there replaces underneath the arms, in the groin area, in the neck, that there were small little, looked like a little small gray bean that you had to take out. Because if you didn't take that out and you cook the meat, it would make the meat bad.
Okay. Wow.
So you had to take that out. So she knew exactly where they were. When I got to graduate school and I started to train to become an immunologist, to learn about how our internal body systems work, those were lymph nodes.
Wow.
That's the depots in our body where our immune cells go.
Right.
And they'll live there, and then they'll go from that place to other places in the body. Just think about it as like depots for a train.
Right.
You know, or bus or system, where these are areas where they congregate and then go off into other areas. So I started off in grad school ahead of the game because of my great grandmother.
Wow,
The other grad students were like, "Oh, DeBroski, can you show us how to do that? How do you know how to find these?" I was like, "It's the must." You know. So, but seriously, you know, I spent 5 years conducting basic research using animals, using research animals, and infecting those animals with parasitic organisms, and learning all of the mechanisms and pathways that our body, that the research animal used to fight that infection. That's the thing. So that was, wow. I was in grad school from 1995 to 2000, and I went to Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia. It was very, very difficult. I sold my 73 Buick Regal and caught a bus from Hattiesburg, Mississippi up to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It took me 3 days. I stayed, and I didn't stop until 5 years later. I had my doctoral degree. And after that doctoral degree, I then, for many reasons, I decided to go over to Africa, and I got a position there. I did research 5 years in Cape Town, South Africa. After Cape Town, South Africa, it was time to come back home. I had a greater appreciation for the United States by going abroad. I know, Johnny, you know, you've been overseas, and you know what it's like in different cultures and things like that. After coming back to the United States, I spent another about 5 years in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I was then a research assistant professor. Then I was awarded my first federal grant to do my own research studies, because that means, you know, my profession today is writing federal research applications to study a certain problem. And that's what I'm trained to do. And so I started to get really good at it when I was in Cincinnati. After 5 years in Cincinnati, I then went to the University of California, San Francisco in the Bay Area. Spent another 5 years there, continuing to build my laboratory. At that point, I had maybe about 4 people who were directly in my group. They were doing the research that I wanted them to do. Now, after about that 5 years, from starting in 2016, I've been at the University of Pennsylvania, and now my research lab group is 15 people.
Oh, so it's grown.
It has grown considerably. It's just challenging, but it's incredibly rewarding. I am basically an entrepreneur. My laboratory does what I wanted to do. So I am Dr. Herbert, you know, and you know, you got to follow. And I spend a lot of time traveling abroad, both nationally and internationally, to speak on the research that my laboratory is doing. And I'm living my best life today.
Okay.
I was gonna ask you, what you saying that there's not many people of color in your field. How was that challenging, like breaking down the barriers, you know, to kind of get your foot in the door and get to where you are today? You know, what type of challenges did you meet along the way?
I want to first say that I have a huge amount of gratitude for my mother, instilling into me a strong work ethic, and also giving me the name that I have.
Right.
So I think one of the things that a big part of breaking down those barriers is having a name, DeBroski Raphael Herbert. Most people did not know that was a black man, right? And so you know, I know, you know, people, you know, you have names that your parents give you, and you know that's good and all. It's just, for me, I benefited greatly. I remember starting graduate school, and I put in my applications and everything, and I got accepted. And the first day when I walked into the admissions office, the administrator said, "Oh, you're DeBroski? Wow, I forgot what you look like." This woman had never seen me. She could not possibly have forgotten what I looked like. So those are the types of responses that I became accustomed to. You know, there are books out there. There's lots of controversy about blacks being inferior and not being able to handle the rigor of the basic sciences. And so a lot of people would underestimate me, those who are superiors or who have been in the field longer. And so I've spent a lot of time proving myself, but proving myself not so much as my words, but more my actions. You know, the productivity of my laboratory, what we're able to do, and also what is a measure of humility in knowing that actions do speak louder than words. So there have been many times that I've been upset because of how I was treated, because someone had a preconceived notion of what they thought. But when they saw me, what I was able to do, then that changed. Absolutely. And I will point out one particular incident where my career was really starting to catch a lot of momentum. You know, John Henry and I go back for just to childhood, and I've been on this road and sharing with him many challenges along this road. And one particular I shared that I will recount again here was we had published a very nice research report, and it got some national attention. And I was invited to speak on this research. And that's the mark of a scientist. When you publish work that gets recognized, you get asked to come and talk about it. And you get honorarium, and, you know, all that, you know, you get on the speaking circuit. And so I was getting into this world of being on the speaking circuit, being invited. I was invited to Canada, a very prestigious international meeting, and people from all over the world. And there was a week-long conference. It was in Banff, Canada, and the hotel looked like a castle, right? I mean, out of a storybook, it looked like a castle. And the only other brown face that I saw was the man who was holding the door at the hotel. Wow. So because of my experiences, I've learned to ski. Imagine that. South Mississippi boy learned how to ski, right? Just because this is where this career has taken me and exposed me to different opportunities. And I was standing with 4 or 5 other colleagues, and we were waiting to go ski. And I had my iPad or my iPod on, the headphones in. I had snowboarding pants, and I thought I was, you know, I had arrived, you know, and a big tour bus pulled up, and very nice bus, and we were just chatting. So imagine that, you know, I'm kind of facing this way, but I could see out of my peripheral vision the tour bus, and the driver gets out and starts flailing or starts moving his arms, and I saw this out of the corner of my eye, but we were engaged in conversation. You know, I'm observant, I'm a scientist. I generally try to, you know, be very precise about my environment and what's going on. I ignored it. After about 2 or 3 minutes, the same gentleman started to approach us. And as I turned around, he had 2 bags. He put them at my feet, looked me right in the face and said, "Why are you standing around? Get these bags." And so the conversation stopped. All my white colleagues, they kind of just looked at me. You know, it was a moment. and, you know, all of that, you know, past, you know, discrimination, the feeling like, oh, you're not in the right place. What maybe should I get? Maybe I should be getting back. You know, all of that welled up inside of me. But I will say that thankfully, what I was able to respond relatively quickly was just, why do you think I should get these bags? why do you think that?
Mm-hmm.
And once I said that to him, he then kind of came out of his trance, whatever he was in, and said, "Oh, sir, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon." And then he grabbed the bags and he moved. Still, psychologically, that affected me for the whole conference. It's still today, I'm still talking about it. But I am so grateful that, you know, previous barriers had been breaking down, so I could be a scientist.
Yeah.
So I could tell him, hey, you know what? I'm a scientist.
Right.
I'm not getting those bags today.
Right.
You may be used to seeing someone like me just with the bags, but this is a new day. And that's where we are today.
Amen on that one.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Kind of what you said, and I just want to give a shout out to the women in your family because they already had game plan for your life.
Yes.
Years in advance.
Yes.
Because your great grandmother, believe it or not, she was a scientist too.
Right.
Right. She already knew what a lip nose were. Yeah. So shout out to the women.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
You know,
What would we do without them?
I know. Yes, indeed. We had lost cause. But yeah, that's a very interesting story. You said you went to Cape Town. That's Africa. How was that environment? Was it a little different? Being around more black people, you know, because I know how, you know, sometimes it tends to get, us as black, we get it on both sides. So how was that, being abroad?
That was really interesting. You know, we could spend almost a whole segment on that. And Johnny knows that, you know, I was over there and then I would come back a few times and he said, man, you sounded different. You know, you listen to different music. Your accent has changed. I must say that, again, there was a time in my life where I tried to be African. I tried to shed this, you know, all the racism and all the discrimination and just how we live today. And I had told myself, if I got to Africa, all would be different. That was not entirely correct. My experience in Cape Town was very, very interesting. I got married to a woman who was of the mixed race. So in South Africa, because of the past apartheid system, they almost had a caste system where there was African, then there was colored, which here you would say just light skin or whatever kind of, you know, phrases that we have for people who are fair, but different shades or in the black community. Then you had English as being over in Britain, and you had Afrikaner. Afrikaner was the ones who the population really instilled apartheid. The Afrikaners were Dutch from years back, like in the 1600s. So it was really complicated and diverse. I noticed that the mixed population, who I had a little bit more culturally in common with, and my ex-wife is from that colored population, but she's still, early on in our relationship, would say, well, we're a mixed couple. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. It's kind of like, you know, Halle Berry, you know, did you say, no, we're a mixed couple. Like, what?
Yeah, we both black.
What are you talking about, you know? But so that was that one thing. And I experienced racism from the colored population. I did. And then from the African population, well, I looked African. I was dark, had real African features, but they spoke a completely different language. Colored spoke a lot of English. Africans spoke less English. So I would notice that I would get one response from people if I did not speak. But as soon as I spoke and they heard this, whoa, wait a minute, you know, you're different. You know, I got either give me some money or take me to your country, or you're not one of us, or it's kind of a us and them. It was challenging on a lot of different ways.
So it was like a different form of racism, pretty much?
It was a little bit different, yeah. It really was. And I think that, you know, it started to evolve me to think more about economics and education. So I noticed that during that time in South Africa, I had really a lot of great friends who were English, who were completely white, because there was a certain education in economics that was more in line with what I was used to and what my values are, you know, versus how other populations were living. So, you know, the racism is all tied up into what you're able to afford, where you're able to live, what you do with your time, what you put value on.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That what you just said. I mean, you know, yeah, I've been abroad too, and that is true. I mean, even Africa. I mean, we were as far as right here to St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, over there. And my time in service, we ran across some folks, and you know, hey, my brother. It correct you very quickly. No, you're not my brother. You look the same. I mean, you got an accent, but no, you from over there. You're not my brother. That lets you know quick. You know, it's almost like you said. It's racism among each other.
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Really, yeah. It was really disappointing too in a lot of ways, and that led to me. You know, so after about 4 or 5 years, I really realized that even though the United States, you know, as a black population, we were, you know, experienced a lot of discrimination, and as its current events, you know, police brutality is just getting more intense. But you go overseas and you realize it's the same thing, or maybe even worse.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just about
maybe
to say
even worse. So much so that when I finally moved back here to the States, and I was going through passport control, and I said, you know, and there was a white face on the other side of the officer. He said, "Welcome home," and I said, "Well, oh, thank you so much." You know, I'm glad to be home. I felt like, this is home. This is home. Right. So it gave me a different perspective on things, and I think it does make me want to fight more for equality here in this country, and more of seeing that we are more similar than we would.
Your story is interesting, and I'm glad that we're able to capture it, you know, right now, because being a kid coming from one of the most racist state history of racism, being a kid from South Mississippi, and you've traveled so many places. You know, when you first went to Philadelphia, was that your first? Was it a bit of a culture shock?
Culture shock is an underestimation of the word. I mean, Philadelphia in 1995 almost killed me. After getting off that bus and realizing what I needed to do in order to get this degree, it was wow. A culture shock, and the African American population in Philadelphia, in that inner city, is just so different than what we experience here. Here, I was going from a culture where at least, yes, there was heavily racism, but in our community, it's common to at least nod or wave or some kind of acknowledgement that here you're another human being. We probably experiencing some of the same thing. In Philadelphia, it was, as Johnny just mentioned, like in this Virgin Islands, maybe you have this black skin, but that might mean that if I do something to you, the police are less likely to get, so it's more often the black on black crime because of the repercussions of that are less than if you do something to someone in another culture or somebody who may be Caucasian. You know, so the solidarity, I didn't feel that at all. I mean, but the first multiple years, I just stayed really close to the university. My Friday and Saturday nights were spent with, you know, NWA and some choice beverage, you know, and I kind of just, you know, and it kind of got around, like, you know, I was playing some music in the lab one night, and when the other grad students came in and said, DeBroski, did that lyric say kill the white people? Sorry, you wasn't supposed to hear that, but you know, I had to find my own ways to unwind or recharge or whatever. I mean, I found some friends, you know, there were oftentimes it was the foreigners, people from other places, and I've identified strongly with the foreigner group,
right?
Because that I felt like a foreigner coming from from South Mississippi going to Philadelphia. It was really, really hard. I must say that now, as an adult, going back as a faculty member,
not so much.
Not so much. Now I feel a little bit,
and then like now you have more control over
your
environment. Right. As then you were still kind of a child, just finding his way through, but you found your way. So now,
it was very, very challenging. But I want to say that I know this is a science based segment here, but having a spiritual foundation, having a connection with at least the God of my understanding, it didn't have to be from my great-grandmama's church and everything, but just having a place of solace that when it got really hard, when I felt really alone, I wasn't completely alone.
Right.
I had a spiritual partner, I had a spiritual guide that was right there with me. I just had to tap into it.
That's it.
So those are the things I used to help get me through.
Yeah.
And then the belief, that there was something on the other side of getting that doctoral degree, and here I am today.
Well, I know this, once again, this is more about science, but I got to touch on this because you kind of lit a little fire when we talk about the racism and stuff like that. Did you get a chance to see the president when he did his address to Congress? It's not so much about what he did; it's about what happened after that when we had that.
Which president?
Biden.
Okay.
When he did it, and then it was the response from Republicans. One of the racist states there was South Carolina has a black governor.
Oh, right.
And he said there was no racism. Racism don't exist pretty much in his thoughts. As you just said, here, yes, it's true. Overseas, it's a worldwide thing, but we just deal with it more here with all the police killings and I believe that if that verdict for the officer, that's right. If it went any other way than the way it had to go that way,
right?
Because if it didn't, it was it probably kicked off another civil war right here,
right.
So what's your thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, in science right now we're dealing with institutionalized racism. I have colleagues who are still being, barred from getting inside their buildings where they work because of the skin color.
Wow.
I've got students that are being told to not pursue certain tracks because of their skin color, being made to feel different. It's so ingrained that it's large. My personal opinion is that racism is easy. It's easy to look and see, like, this is how something appears, a situation or a person, and how they look and their features, and then you make a whole list of conclusions. It's just easy to do. What's more challenging and to be a human being is to take a moment to actually use your words and figure out who someone is and what a situation really is. Man, it takes longer to do that,
That's awesome, man. I've never just heard it like that. But man, that put a lot of things into perspective right there. Just take a break, because black people are guilty of the same thing. When we instantly see it, just say a white man with a goatee or something like that, we automatically, just being from South,
we think
that it's racist. But if you actually get the chance to talk to him or get to know him, you will understand that maybe he was taught that way, but he doesn't want to be that way, or he isn't that way. He will help you out maybe quicker than your own family member.
Right.
So that was very interesting that you said that, because I don't know if everyone in here, but I may have been, I have been guilty, not made of that same thing before. I've run across, like a group of white people, I instantly think,
stereotype.
And I had to get myself to that place to know that every white person isn't racist.
Right.
Right. I wanted to share a little a story, because I think that I believe that very strongly, that take a moment, you know, past the knee-jerk reflex, and really evaluate a person or a situation for what it is. I was traveling through Pennsylvania with my son. We went camping. We were coming back, and on the way back, deep off into the woods of Pennsylvania, I saw a group of hunters on the side of the road. Now, I work at a vet school, and one of the diseases that we're very interested in is called chronic wasting disease. It's a disease that deer get. So we passed by, and my first thought was, oh, those are good old boys. Just that, right? And I said, no. No. I turned the car around, came back. Me and my son and a lovely pit bull dog, we pulled up to about 4 or 5 hunters, all in camo, you know, and you should see their response. They were thinking like, what is this? Right? I pulled up, and as soon as I said, good morning, gentlemen, you getting ready to go out?
The barrier came down.
And we had a nice little chat for about 5 minutes because they didn't know I was a good old boy too. I grew up hunting. Seeing them on the side of the road that morning, that brought back memories for me. I knew how they talked. They had no idea, but if we just stayed there at the appearance, we would not have shared that experience. And so I just shared with them. And so, yeah, you're going out. Did you have, you know, you're going out, you coming in, you kill anything? You guys bow hunting or rifle hunting? You know, it was just a nice, just spoke their language. It was a nice little exchange, and then we went our ways.
Cool.
And I think that, you know, I don't want to be some kind of, you know, trying to, I don't know what the purpose of that. I'm just saying is I think examples of that can help to change.
That's it.
Yes.
Well, just gotta move a little past.
That was good.
We don't get stuck on. I mean, we can go all day with that.
Right.
Let's move on a little further. Thoughts on the pandemic? I mean,
with you being
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
You go ahead because you finna nail it. What I just finna say.
But but you being in that field where you study infectious diseases, and then the pandemic hit. What are your thoughts on it? You know.
Yeah. So I've been really in the thick of things. You know, with the information that has been coming out as the pandemic has unfolded. I was part of leading, faculty groups looking at the primary data. We looked at papers supporting controversy of whether this was a man-made thing. We looked at that. It does not look like it's man-made, although there's still some possibility that may be true. How it would come out of bats. Did it come out of bats? That does seem to be like it is actually true. How the virus is continuing to evolve, that does seem to be true. But most of our conversations have been about what is the solution, right? Okay. Well, what's going to bring us out of this pandemic? Right now, before I get to that, and then we spoke a lot about the manifestations of the disease. So let me what's going to bring us out. Let me first really try to spend a second on what actually is this, what's causing the pandemic, right? And the pandemic is caused by a coronavirus, a specific strain of a coronavirus that has been evolving over time. This is SARS-CoV-2. There was a SARS-CoV-1 that was mostly in the Middle East. It did not spread as widely as it was MERS. It didn't spread as widely as this one has. It wasn't as successful of a virus. There are many different types of coronaviruses. This one is definitely spread through oral, through respiratory droplets, you know, that can enter your nose or enter your mouth. The way that why you should wash your hands is because if the virus gets on your hands, we touch our face and hands all the time, so that can then go in through. So it's not going to go through your skin, but it will go through your mouth or your nose. Now, and it has specific receptors that are on the cells in your nose that it latches onto. And once it latches onto, then it can find its way into the cell. Now, what made the pandemic so fierce, when it first started coming out, people thinking, oh, this is just the flu. Oh, this is just the flu. Now, it's not just the flu, because whereas the flu virus also goes in through your nose, your airways, and attaches to cells and goes in, that attachment, that sticking, whereas the flu virus is like Scotch tape. You know, it will stick, but you can take it off.
Right.
The SARS-CoV-2 is like Velcro.
Oh.
When it gets on there, it's really, really on. So you don't need much of those viral particles to get infected. And when you're infected, two things can mostly happen. So you have people who are walking around that they got coronavirus infected, and they'll have just a little, you know, runny nose, loss of taste, you know, but it didn't affect them that much. And we were initially thinking this was most of the young people, although there's many, many reports that even young people can get the second version I'm going to tell you about. This first version, where you just get the kind of the runny nose, loss of taste, of smell and taste, the virus stays mostly in your sinuses. It stays up here because there's people who have such a robust immune system for your body where you hold it at that spot. Okay? A whole other segment of people, and we don't know what the difference between these two sets of people are, but there's another set of people that you get initially infected, but then the virus is able to travel down into your lower airways. If the virus travels into your lower airways, you got serious problems. All the basic data, research data shows that the immune response and the damage that that results from the virus being down in your lower airways, in your lungs, causes permanent remodeling. You're never the same. Some people, it gets so bad that you asphyxiate, you can't breathe, and you die. That's why all the ventilators, you know, this controversy about ventilators. Some people are able to clear it from the lungs, but there's permanent scarring. Okay, there's all that. If it goes down in your lungs, you will forever be changed.
Okay, there's
no coming back. It's just the level of that change. So someone who has a lower airway SARS, they get really sick and they recover. They say, "Oh, well, I'm feeling much better." Okay, yeah, you're gonna feel much better, but you're not running a marathon. You're not, you know, donating your lung to your sick relative, you know, half of your lung to your sick relative, or you're not doing things to the same extent that you used to do. And people really need to understand that it's a very serious virus. And it's continuing to mutate, and we're studying that now. So, you know, my take on it is that it's very, very, very important to protect yourself against this virus. And the main way that we have for protection for the short term is covering your face, your airways. So mask wearing is a great way of 99% to protect you from acquiring the virus, okay? However, that's not a long-term solution. It's a short-term solution.
Right.
The long-term solution is vaccination. And as an immunologist, I wanted to take a moment to really describe how important vaccination is, and I realize that there's a lot of controversy.
Stop you for 1 second, because I want to back up before we get to that vaccination. It's put out there that they said, you know, certain blood types, and I want to, you know, since I know you deal with that, they say, you know, O positive is most likely not to get it. Is there any truth in this blood type theory that I've been hearing about?
So it's not been shown by rigorous testing in regards to SARS-CoV-2.
Okay.
I will say there is evidence that different blood types, so the way blood types work is that your body naturally makes responses against sugars associated with cells in your body. That means if, you know, like O is a universal donor, right? So other people don't make responses against O. But O can't receive A blood because your immune system recognizes the sugars or recognizes that blood from someone that's A is different and will give you a amazingly
rejection.
Yeah, amazing rejection, and you will die from it if you give them too much of that blood. So blood type does affect immune responses. Yes. Okay. Does blood type predict how you're going to respond to SARS-CoV-2? It's a guess. It's got to be done by rigorous scientific testing, and that just
right now
it's just too early. So you're really gambling if you go from that. So there's some evidence that, you know, blood type may be some evidence there, but we just don't know for sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to get, because I've heard that, and you know, I did my own little research. You know, Google it, of course.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Google it.
Yeah, I Google everything these days. But you know, hey, I really, you know, you deal with this too. You know, so get it from you. Hey, is this true or not? But it's not proven, as you said. It's a theory, but it hasn't been just nailed down.
It has not been nailed down.
You're O positive. You're good.
Right. So I would not try. And there's lots of theories like that out there.
Yeah, smoking weed. They say smoking weed, you won't catch it, but
I ain't heard that one.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
You say it all the time. But I think Jamaica had like no cases for a long time or something like that.
I want to say that also the biology of the virus. This virus has an envelope around it, which means it has like like some viruses are just a naked piece of DNA, okay, or RNA. This has nucleic acid, new DNA, RNA that encodes the genes of the virus, but it has like a membrane around it. Or imagine it like
a shield or something.
A shield, yeah. Imagine it being like a chocolate-covered M&M or something. Okay. Now, and just like a chocolate-covered M&M, that candy shell can protect it, but it also can break down. Soap, the emulsification of soap breaks down that membrane. That's why washing hands, that's how hand sanitizers work. Right? Because it breaks down. So, and also coronaviruses by definition break down in hot, humid conditions. Breaks down the envelope. So places like, Lagos in Nigeria, I have a lot of colleagues there. There's coronavirus, but it's not that much. India may be another thing altogether because people are so jammed together.
Yeah, it's one of the fastest growing populations.
There's something else going on, but I don't know about the weed smoking, but maybe the temperature and conditions and things like that. That might be more of 98 degrees in the shade. Yeah. That might be more of it than the weed smoking.
Well, that's what I think Trump was saying at the time. He said when it reaches the summertime that they was expecting the virus to kind of the numbers to dwindle down, but it never really happened.
No, it didn't. It didn't. So there's just still a lot of things we don't understand with this virus.
But you was heading down the road towards vaccination.
Yeah.
Into it.
Yeah. So vaccines. So I want to kind of go back to, as an immunologist, if we go way back to like Jenner with smallpox vaccines, the way that we figured out that the immune system works is if you introduce a small part of something that you're going to experience later, your immune system will make a response against it such that when you see it again,
it's ready to attack it.
Right.
Yeah, I learned that in science
right,
class.
right. Once burned, twice shy, whatever, right? And so the way the vaccine, and I want to lift up today Kizzy Corbett at the National Institutes of Health, which is an African-American woman who led the coronavirus task force initiative under Anthony Fauci.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
This is an African-American woman who's led the generation of the main version of this virus used by vaccination used by Pfizer and Moderna. Okay. It's a new way of vaccination. We used to vaccinate by taking the intact virus. So like it was a flu virus, and this is how flu vaccines work. You take the flu vaccine, you take the whole intact virus, you attenuate it, which means make it weak. You can put it in a detergent or a fixative or something like that, but it's the whole intact virus, and you use that, you give it to someone, and you make a response in the body that's antibodies and cells. So that's the two main arms of the immune system are soluble factors that just kind of float around, that's in your blood in the serum part, and then the cells, the white blood, the leukocytes, the white blood cells are also in the body. They work together to protect.
Vaccination?
No, to protect you against things.
Okay.
So the vaccination is a new way of getting your two arms of your immune system working together. And what that is instead of the whole virus, what Dr. Corbett and others have figured out is you just take the nucleic acid, which means the inside of that M&M, like forget the envelope, forget everything outside, just the inside part. It's the part that encodes for the genes. Now, we now know from the latest discoveries over the past 15 years that there are certain cells in the body that have a receptor on the surface, it kind of looks like this, that will recognize nucleic acid. So the nucleic acid itself is not alive. It's not going to grow, it's not going to do anything. It just, it has to be inside of a cell in order to make like a protein or encode for something. But we now know that there's cells that still see nucleic acid. So the vaccine that Dr. Corbett came up with was just a piece of nucleic acid used to stimulate the immune system because there are specific cells that will recognize that. It's not live. It's not anything that's going to grow. It's nothing that's going to change your DNA. It's not going to change it. It's dead. It's completely dead. It never was living or anything. And that's we can make these new vaccines because of the advances in the past 10 or 15 years that have occurred. So the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines is you get that nucleic acid, and most people will experience, just like I've experienced because I'm fully vaccinated. The first shot gives you a little bump, you get a little soreness at the site, you get a small response. But the second response, the second shot, you get the big, you get the memory response, you get a big whopping response. That means a lot more cells in your body can see that nucleic acid and respond to it.
And that's why you get the fever,
that's
the headaches,
why, right.
Okay.
So it is a natural, so the fever, headaches, nausea, all that is a natural response that your body is supposed to make to help protect you. What was so important to understand is that if you don't get vaccinated and you get the virus, it's going to go way beyond the spaces I described, right? So it's going to live, that virus is going to live and replicate inside you for a long time before your immune system catches up. And like I said, if you're one of the ones that it goes in your chest, game's over. You don't know if you're going to be ICU or have a, just recover. You just don't know. If you want to gamble with your life, you know.
Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson has scared, well, I saw a thing on the news, let's say last week. Mississippi was like one of the worst states for not our numbers went from we're vaccinated to we're not vaccinated no more. Because, you know, when at Johnson & Johnson, and they suspended that one, that put a little fear in people, saying, you know, why did they stop Johnson & Johnson? Is it not right? And, you know, a lot of people were scared about getting vaccinated because of the simple fact of it came up so quick, you know, like, and, you know, we rushed it out there. You know, I'm fully vaccinated, but, you know, that's just what I did, you know,
Yeah, let me speak to both of those points.
Okay.
So, it seems like it was a rush, but Dr. Corbett and others were already working on this.
When it was in China? Well, you know, I came from over there, so how long were they working on it before?
They were already working on mRNA-based vaccines.
Oh, period. Already.
Okay. That was an active area of research because of the flu pandemics, because of right? So that I'm saying the technology advances, and because of the way that the vaccines are made, all it required was more people working on it.
Gotcha.
So instead of a few laboratories working on it with a limited amount of funds, now when the pandemic came, now all of a sudden you have more money and more people, but the same technology. There wasn't anything new that just popped up. And the way the technology is moving, again, I'm telling you, it's nucleic acid. We can synthesize nucleic acid using a simple device where you put in the basics of DNA. You know, so what I'm saying is we can make our abilities have enhanced considerably over the years. So it wasn't that this was rushed, and it went through all the regulatory procedures that vaccines need to go through. It's just that it had priority. Usually it takes so long because it's not a priority. And you've got 30 other things that are in the head of the line. Because it's a worldwide pandemic, it was like, okay, those other things are not important. Put evaluation of coronavirus vaccine at the front of the line. Simple as that. It's kind of like, you know, if you got a rich uncle that's in a company, you know, everybody else trying to apply for a job, you're like, guess what, I need a job, and the uncle said, okay, I got something for you. Simple as that. The Johnson vaccine and also the AstraZeneca, so has to do with blood clots. So there's always a risk of vaccination for, as I explained, vaccination induces a robust immune response. And some people, it's so robust, right, that a blood clot, different side effects may occur in blood clots. I would have you to know that with women taking birth control, the risk for blood clots is 1 in 1,000.
Wow. Did not know
that. Right? The risk for blood clots for vaccination of what? 1 in 10,000?
6 out of 3 million, 30 million vaccinated, 6 people had blood clots.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do a little shout out to Flavor Flav here. Don't believe the hype, because, it's about what people's attention is getting placed on, priority wasn't on women taking birth control because what?
Pro-abortion, all that.
Right? Whereas, so this is no more dangerous than taking birth control. Certainly not more than taking birth control pills.
I got 3 things I want to run by you. First of all, the origin, is it to believe true that it actually came from China, or is that just some type of thing that was threw out there because of some type of political agenda?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Being completely honest, when I went over this basic literature, the basic scientific papers with my scientific colleagues at the first part of the pandemic, There was research that was being done in the U.S. where they were modifying coronavirus in ways that can infect human cells. That research, the funding for that research was pulled, and they then moved it over to China. Okay. Who knows what then happened after that? So I don't want to get into conspiracy theories. It's easy to get into conspiracy theories, but I will say that there's documented evidence of changing coronaviruses in a way that they were trying to see if it to build on a universal flu vaccine using coronavirus. Figured out that they could change a few aspects of this coronavirus and make it infect human cells, and then the regulatory commission said, "Time out! You can't." We are not going to support this research that's going to make viruses more virulent and able to infect humans. Stop what you're doing. But then China took it over. So the sequencing variants of the virus do show that the virus seems like it came from bats and pangolins. Pangolin is a very interesting organism, animal. I suggest you look it up, Google it. What a pangolin looks like. But
All right. The second one is that I feel like that when you said that the numbers, John Henry said that the numbers have dropped in Mississippi, and a lot of people as vaccinated. I saw on the news the other day where the numbers have dropped. People are not getting the same information what you just gave them about the clear acid. What is it? The actual thing that the vaccine is, the only thing that it targets. Because a lot of people, conspiracy theories, like you said, they say that it's putting a chip in you. The other thing is that it changes your genetic system. But the government, I feel, has failed to put that out there. That it's really, it does nothing. It just helps your cells recognize a certain thing. So that kind of scares people away, shies people away. And then thirdly, and this ties in together. Like I haven't been vaccinated, and I'm one of the ones on the fence about getting vaccinated because I believe pretty much of natural medicine. I know you're familiar with Dr. Sebi and stuff like that. Yes, and I listen to that because, some things they say is uncurable, but Dr. Sebi, has proof that things can be cured. So I'm more on the natural side. I feel, if you eat your fruits, your lemons and stuff like that, that the immune system would build up a natural barrier towards any infectious disease. Your take on that?
Yeah, look, I take natural medicines. Okay, I'm a big proponent of it. I travel a lot. I've, had access to medicines from Africa that local people have that you wouldn't, over here we can't get.
You're not gonna find it on the store.
You're not gonna find it on the store. You're not gonna be able to Google it. I believe strongly in it. But I also believe in vaccination. And I'll tell you why. The natural remedies are a way of kind of like helping you naturally defend your body to work, normally. But they always are gonna work a bit slower, and it's not gonna be as effective for this like acute challenge with something really serious. So if you go to, the grocery store now, or you go, you step on your foot on a nail, you need to go to urgent care, and there's somebody in there with coronavirus, and they're literally sneezing, thousands of viral particles. That amount of virus hitting your body at one time, the natural medicine's got no chance, right? The natural medicine is going to help you to function properly, but you're still going to you're still going to rely upon whatever your genetic makeup is to allow you to naturally fight things. The vaccination levels the playing field. Vaccination says, you know what, even if you're type O blood or type AB, or even if you have some, mutation in one of the genes that you don't know about, you're perfectly fine, right? But under certain specific situations, you may be susceptible to this. Right. So the vaccination levels a playing field and says, okay, forget about all of that. Here we're going to kickstart, we're going to put some cement on this area, where you got dirt roads. You're like, yeah, dirt roads will work. Yeah. You can ride on them, everything. But we're going to make sure this part, when the flood comes, you're not going to get washed out, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say. It takes your natural defense and really shores it up. So that specific thing, you won't suffer from. The natural medicines are kind of like in general, you in general won't get sick, with getting flu or getting, the common cold. That's what the natural medicines do. They keep you, it's like, it's like working out, it's like going to the gym, right? But you see, even if you go to the gym, you can still catch a cold. Right. You could still catch a cold, You may not catch it while you just, doing normal things, but have your little cousin come over, your little cousin come over, hey, uncle, give me a hug, and you get that, you're gonna get sick. Right? And so that's what I'm trying to say. That's why, we're in a pandemic. We're in a situation where you could be exposed to a large amount of virus and get at one time and get really sick. And the only way to really, really be sure to be protected for a long term is vaccination. Otherwise, wear your mask all the time. And yeah, coming back to the what actually is it? The government hasn't done a great job in explaining to people what actually is it. They just say, go get vaccinated, right? Right now, with the technology we have, it's pretty impossible to, I don't want to say it's impossible to put a chip in you, but it's so improbable. It's really improbable. This is again, it's nucleic acid, which is just, I'm doing this, it's not like you can see the nucleic acid, but we have, a natural defense in our bodies that recognizes this nucleic acid, and now you're gonna tap in right into that. It's nothing that's like
introducing the virus to your body.
It's not a virus. It's never gonna give productive virus. Not the mRNA vaccines will never do that. The flu vaccines are kind of different, like I said, because it's a weakened form of the flu. Some people actually have such a weak immune system that weakened flu still takes off and gives you full flu because it's a different way of making the vaccine. So this is an attenuated form of the virus. This is different. It's a very different technology. And I want to touch on one more thing that you guys didn't ask about, and that is, in our community, in the African American community, there's been a lot of mistrust in the medical establishment, namely because, in the 40s, 50s, they were doing experiments on us.
Yeah,
they were
Tuskegee.
The Tuskegee experiment. They were deliberately taking live syphilis, giving it to men, and watching to see what were whole stages of. And there you have a sinister, almost like the Nazi-based trials, where they were experimenting on Jews, for just curiosity's sake. But think about it. In both of those instances, you have virtually a homogeneous population of medical people who are doing experiments on another population. So you've got, for mostly Caucasian, scientists and medical doctors doing experiments on another population of people, and they think that they see themselves as different. It's almost like me in the lab, I see myself as different from a mouse. So I'm going to do experiments on the mouse and sit back and see what happens. That's what that attitude was like. This day and age is different. The levels of, I'll come back to Kizzmekia Corbett. Dr. Corbett is just like you and me, right? So she's a great example of the diversity that exists in the medical and research community now. So we should have a level of comfort and trust in what's coming out, because more of our people, there's more diverse people, there's more different hands on what's coming out as vaccines and treatments.
Right. To touch on that, I was gonna get to it, but you went that. The distrust that the black people, like you said, have with the government is that things have passed, right? Well, with the pandemic, one of the things was that African Americans are more susceptible to getting the virus. But what you just explained is that it doesn't really matter about the race, creed, or color, or health issues, for that matter. All that matters is if you get it from somebody or they sneeze on you and it gets in there, then you know. But the government, when they first came out, they said black people are more likely to get it due to diabetes, high blood pressure, you know, the things we eat and stuff like that.
So what I think, so I want to just correct it just a little bit. My understanding was that it's the severe form, like people of color getting coronavirus, getting this SARS-CoV-2, the outcome of it. So say like you have, 100 people, 50 people of color, 50 people or Caucasian or otherwise, and then they all get the same dose, they all get it the same way, then this outcomes. So my way I got it is, yes, it's because of these, vascular diseases. So diabetes is a very vascular disease. Coronavirus dramatically affects the blood vessels, and if you have a weakened vascular system, the chances of you getting a severe outcome are great. And so the reports were really about people of color are dying or having severe outcomes more than, right? And that speaks to health disparities and disproportionate, health care. So that's a bigger issue, that our community needs to get access to better health care, right? So when the infections come around, we can get treatments just like everybody else. So we won't have those worse outcomes. Right. And I think that's what it wasn't, that someone of color is more apt to get infected versus someone who's not. I think that the initial infection is about the same, given if you have the same type, things that you do, habits.
So see, you cleared that up.
Yeah.
And see, but the government had you believe, like my way of thinking, okay, if you black, or just say my grandmother, she's been long gone, but she had diabetes, if she was still living, that she was more susceptible. So you can't go anywhere, grandmother, because you have diabetes, you can catch it quicker than anyone else. And that's just catching it. It's not the outcome. Government then, differentiate the two. They just said that, black people were more susceptible.
They said that. They had a whole chart about it. They did Afro-Americans, and we're high risk, and other nationalities. And at the scale, we have been
catching it, not the outcome based. So, it's a level of trust when you hear things like that. And, the government, they tend to twist things, the media twist things and stuff like that. But that's why we need people from our community that are on those levels where you can relay the message to people and they can get the truth. Because you come from where they come from, and you don't want to mislead them.
And I've spent years in the trenches, in there with the community, in there with us. So then, I've spoke, to my church. I've given, PowerPoint presentations, where really explaining the virus and explaining how to, and that's what we need, that really clear information given and, communicating in a way that we understand.
Yeah, because I'll let you go, because before you came, no way, no how would I ever get a vaccination. Hearing it from you, somebody who I can relate to, you know, looks like me, who comes from where I come from. Now I'm like, okay, it may not be that bad, you know. So we need more. When I say leadership, community leaders like that, you know, and that's this podcast to do with it.
So happy to be here.
Those, and we're happy to have you. But those who hear this message will receive it differently than what they've been hearing. So you kind of broke down some of those fairy tales that people have been hearing. You know, that they're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. You know, and that they're able to, you know, relate. You know,
yeah, hey, that's a beautiful thing. You know that you came and explained that, but I'm thinking more so right now about what are your thoughts about, let's talk about our state, Mississippi. You know, our governor, y'all have at it.
Right.
Do you think it's too soon?
Ooh, boy.
Good question. I was thinking that too.
Because he just kind of pulled the wool back, you know, and
it's more of an economic thing with him.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, if you're killing all, this ain't through yet. You know, it's like, you know, we ain't won the race yet. We might be on the victory lap. We can see the finish line, but we're not there yet. Well, I feel it's too early. But him pulling back and then I stay in
the dollars are dwindling.
Huh?
When you got money that's leaving, they want to bring that back.
Yeah.
But I mean, at what cost?
Yeah.
What's the cost?
And this is huge. I must say that it's larger than me. You know, this issue of economics versus health, health and safety. I do feel it is too early. We now know that these viral variants are that have been detected in Brazil and South Africa. They're actually here in the U.S. as well. We don't know how these viral variants are going to act. You know, we're getting information that different vaccinations will cover these viral variants. You know, if you're not vaccinated, then again, you have no defense against it at all. So you're taking the risk. So generally, it's always a lag period. So things will go well. You know, so you get vaccinations. Vaccinations go up, infections go down. Right? Once the vaccinations go down, then you're going to see infections come up, right? Now, where are those infections? Who are going to be those infections, and who are those infections going to then be able to transmit to another population? So this is, maybe you heard about the talk about herd immunity. All right. So herd immunity is really what our ultimate, I'm saying our as the U.S., our ultimate goal, when you have about 75–80% of people who are vaccinated. So that means that 20%, let's say 20 to 30% of people who are not vaccinated, who are never gonna get vaccinated, they may transmit amongst themselves, but eventually it dies out because they don't have that virus has nowhere to go.
Right.
So that's what this is what's happening, what you're pointing to in Mississippi. Well, okay, certain amount of people are vaccinated, thank goodness. The people who are not vaccinated, A, are they gonna get infected? B, if they get infected, well, they're gonna then be able to transmit that, keep that infection going to yet another population. And this is an experiment that's ongoing. The longer you wait, I mean, it's probably a done deal now because the state's open, but the longer you wait, the less chance of you having those last two scenarios happen. New infections, and then those new infections giving rise to more infections, because that's how you keep the pandemic going. Because then you have a rise and fall. You have new infections, right? Because you keep on having, and that's what was happening before the vaccinations. That there was just more and more places for the virus to go.
Right, because everybody was just open arms to receive it.
Yeah.
They had nothing to fight it.
They had nothing to fight it. So now, you know, it's like how many doors on a block are open, right? Now if you've got 10 houses on the block, if 5 are vaccinated, you got, there's 5 doors that maybe you go through, and you kind of taking your risk of, paying the lottery on, which house do you go in and can you get in, and which house the door is locked. Right. 5 you absolutely can't get in. Can't get in. So it's about your habits, and the reservoirs and herd immunity. Again, I just be safe. Stay healthy. I have a strong collaboration with a colleague at work that he studies what's called immune cell exhaustion. So the only downside of like Dr. Sebley and other naturopathic type remedies that boost your immune system, it's like exhaustion. And it's real. There's a lot of basic research on it. If you're constantly stimulating your immune system, when you do get infected, if you ever do really get something, your system may not have the energy, the get up and go to really deal with it. Because think about how the vaccine, the response of the vaccine, right? You get the vaccine, the first one, you get that little bump. Second one, you get a really strong jolt. You get a real strong jolt, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. So what if if you're too stimulated, that jolt, you won't be able to come back from it. The virus can break through and your
cells are tired.
They're tired.
They're getting jolted the whole time. So now when they hit the real
right. Okay. So but like I said, I do take natural remedies. I'm not taking a lot of echinacea and things like that anymore these days because of its stimulatory, but I, make sure I eat a nice healthy diet, get something fresh in you, particularly in the mornings, stay hydrated, all these, make sure you have fiber, make sure your body is, is balanced, and here in Mississippi, we used to our fry ups and our things like that, and that, we got to make sure that we give our body a fighting chance. Don't take it way up there, right? But keep it, keep it conditioned,
You done wrapped up everything, done.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just end by saying, not only was it just a pleasure and an honor to be, invited here today, but I'm happy to do a follow-up. A lot of times, like when I talk to my students in the lab, people learn in a lot of different types of ways.
Right.
Some people learn by listening.
Yeah, some of them hands-on.
Some of them hands-on, and some by reading.
Yes.
And so if I could, provide any literature or presentations or anything like that, you could email me or contact me, and I'm happy to, send things. So,
awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Man, it's been a blast, bro. I appreciate you coming. I know we've been trying to get this together for a
while, right? Yeah.
The pandemic,
and this was better than the Zoom because John here was trying to set up a Zoom.
Yeah,
so I was going to have you here actually physical.
Yeah, it's way better.
Oh yeah.
It looked like we was headed to a Zoom. I mean, they had you locked down, and
it
was just. But I'm glad that we finally got you here, and we had a blast.
Yeah, I appreciate you as well, man. Yeah. All right, you guys. Until next time.
Hold on.
Go ahead, John Harry. I'm sorry.
I still got mine. I know I always say mask up, but hey, once again, if you're comfortable and you feel like you need your mask, don't let them folks out there tell you don't need your mask. Wear your mask. You do what you feel is right for you and protect your family.
That's right.
But till next time.
And I can't believe I'm saying this, but for those, get vaccinated.
Hey!